Hello, and welcome back to our podcast, Flower Farming in New Zealand, where we dig into the detail of growing beautiful blooms here in Aotearoa. I'm your host, Jo Robinson, a flower farmer, a flower lover, and a creator of floral works. I'm keen to encourage the growing, buying, selling, and the use of our gorgeous local and seasonal flowers. This season, the podcast is brought to you by United Flower Growers, or as it's known in the trade, UFG. Talk to UFG today about buying or selling your flowers through their organisation. Today, I'm thrilled to be chatting with Cassie from Flourish events. Cassie is a sustainable florist who's taken a diverse pathway to get where she is today, including her flower farm and calf rearing, not two things that you would normally put together. Welcome, Cassie. It's absolutely delightful to have you here today for our chat.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So give us a brief overview of where you are now and the pathway that you took to get there, whether it be your floristry, your dairy farming, everything that you've done.
I previously was a dairy farmer. I've been a dairy farmer for about 11, 12 years. Right since I was a kid, I've always loved agriculture, animals, anything to do with being outside. I was never ever somebody that could have been an office worker, that's for sure. And we basically wanted to leave where we grew up, wanted a fresh start, wanted more land and to be able to sort of be self-sufficient on a property. We bought our 10 acres here in North Canterbury. My husband, who's a builder, he moved down and started doing all that sort of stuff. We sold our old house and I moved on farm, and I actually injured myself on farm in the peak of calving, and I'd already had a couple of injuries. It's just hard on your body, and I sort of realised that I actually had to start thinking about how I could take care of myself better in the future, and maybe it was time for me to sort of figure out a new passion. I'd always loved flowers and I still wanted to have my outdoors life. That's what I love. So I started researching stuff and I studied floristry in Christchurch when I first moved down here. I think it was just the natural progression from farming to flower farming. But while I studied floristry, it really opened my eyes to realizing just quite how much single-use plastics and not so environmentally friendly products and the whole process of floristry. And I didn't feel like I could get the right kind of options for me. So I thought, I'm just going to be the change that I want. So that's basically what happened.
I love that attitude. If it can't provide what you want, you'll provide it for yourself. That's
Yeah.
Perfect. So that was formal floristry qualifications?
Yeah, so I studied level 3 and 4.
So when you're talking about your flower farm business and your floristry business, do you call yourself a florist who grows her own flowers, or do you call yourself a farmer florist, or have you come up with some really clever, unique phrase that describes what you do?
I just say that I am a florist and flower farmer because I am both quite in equal parts for me, and I don't think one should sort of belittle the other to me.
Oh, I agree completely. It's just really hard to make people understand that you can be both. And it's that thing about saying, are you a flower farmer first or a florist first? Or is there another description? Like, you're a gumboot wearing farmer florist.
Yes.
It's interesting, isn't it, that we all go along these different pathways. But you said it was the formal floristry study that sort of inspired you more to take a more sustainable approach to floristry. Was there one thing that had really upset you or didn't ring correct with you?
I think there was several things. Definitely I found I didn't enjoy working with the likes of floral foam. I didn't feel that was for me. I discovered that like 60% of the foliages that are used in New Zealand are grown overseas. So it's not just flowers that are imported, it's actually a lot of foliage as well. And that kind of blew my mind. But when I also was studying, when we had that very last lockdown, I just started my second part of study, my level 4, because we were on lockdown at home, we actually couldn't get floral foam. So we were learning and starting to do different parts of it. We had to actually do a couple of different assessments where we had to come up with our own alternatives.
And is there a particular way that you have found works for you?
Yes, but I am also always trying to find another alternative. Chicken wire is probably one of the biggest things that I use because I can infinitely reuse that. I really push with my clients, feel free to leave it behind. I will happily pick it up or return it to me. Usually if I'm doing like plinth arrangements or things like that, they're in my vases anyway, so they usually always come back with the chicken wire in them. But I have actually just recently got a new setup sort of thing organized, which I'm going to be trialing this season. I think for me it's been trying to find, especially for like arch arrangements and things that are going to be outdoors, trying to find water reservoirs that are reusable. I actually got another flower grower who has a 3D printer to make me some really cool frames that, because she makes them for larger scale for buckets and things, but I asked her if she could make them for like a smaller container. I'm just going to get my husband to drill some holes in them so then I can attach them to arches. Really looking forward to trialing these this season with wedding flowers and arches and things in particular.
I love the fact that you're going looking for things to solve the problems, because once you've got a system, it's actually easy to stick to it, isn't it? You can stick to your principles once it works for you in a practical level. It's finding that meld of practicality and principles, which is sometimes quite hard to do. I'm going off kilter a little bit here, but have you tried that wool foam, the wool replacement for floral? I haven't heard anybody say anything particularly good about it. I haven't tried it. I don't know.
Yeah, I've tried it. It's not for me. It's really, really densely packed. And I found that I know quite a lot of other florists who have tried it or are using it. I just found that it ended up damaging a lot of stems for one, and it becomes very weighty. It's also still a single use product. So it's like we're going from something that's microplastics to something that, yes, is from a better source, but it's still only got one use. And I feel like even that one use, you ended up with so much more flower wastage anyway. To me, that's not a good enough alternative.
So does that then mean that one of your key principles of your sustainability for your floristry is that things have to be used more than once?
Absolutely, as much as possible. Yeah, I will say I do still use things like zip ties because unfortunately I have not found other alternatives that are as good as a zip tie strength wise and hold wise that are reusable.
With your floristry, you grow some of the flowers yourself, but do you source other flowers locally?
Yep, so I grow about between 90 and 95% of what I use myself. I try to get everything I can as close as possible if it's things that I can't grow. Like I have a really good local rose supplier who's just out of Sheffield, which is not far from me at all. I have two other local growers that I get flowers from. If I can, I'll get flowers out of season from like Aramanga in Heathcote. So I am quite lucky that I do have quite a few really good growers locally. I am also part of Floral Collective, so I reach out to them, the other lovely, amazing growers that are in the Floral Collective, and I'll use them as much as possible. If need be, there are certain things that I can't get here, which I only get in if they are requested, like the likes of orchids, which I still just order them from up north. But I have never used imported product for my business. I basically try to keep things as local as I can, and if I cannot, then I will go outside of that range, but I want to have it all New Zealand product.
Which is fantastic, and it's lovely to hear a florist saying that. Obviously, if you grow 95% of what you use, you must have a reasonable variety of foliage as well as flowers.
I try to. I've started with a bare block. There was not a single tree on this property when I bought it, and that was only 5 years ago. It is a slow process. I'm also the highest wind zone in New Zealand. I've learned that there are a few things that will easily get killed by 201k winds.
You've got to know your own soil, your own wind, your rainfall, everything to know what will grow for you in a way that makes it useful.
Absolutely, and I think that's a really important part that is kind of overlooked in terms of sustainably grown flowers and floristry. It's not just your practices, it's actually knowing what works with your climate and your weather constraints and your soil type and things like that. Because if you're fighting the weather and you're fighting the environment, you're not going to be able to grow plants as sustainably because you've got so much more input having to go into it because you're fighting an inevitable backlog.
And I expect that where you are, that you get howling nor'westers coming through. Is that your wind direction?
I think we've had about 3 really good ones. We've already had one shed that we lost about 2 years ago. That was when we had the 201k winds. But it's also because you're starting with a blank block, and as you build things, you actually slightly change the way wind tunnels through your property anyway. So it's like every time we do get a good wind, it's like, okay, what's changed since then, and how is that affecting the wind path as well? So it's quite fun. We've done like 40 metres of windbreaking on one side of our flower farm. We need to do some more windbreaking on our other side because we find that now our house is directly north of where the flower farm is, so it hits that and kind of funnels around the house and then gets from the east. That side is where we lost the shed, so not where you'd expect to lose something in the northwest. My plan is to build a shade house and windbreak it as well and put it on that side, so then I have my flower farm buffered from both sides.
So for you, what are the biggest challenges of running a sustainable floristry business?
One, I would say, is definitely the seasonal element. I actually would say that this is probably going to sound a bit weird, but Pinterest and a lot of social media influence now actually makes it so much harder to run a business because so many clients are influenced by social media, and so much of the media that they are faced with is completely opposite seasons to us. So you get people that will have just seen a wedding and go, oh, I want these flowers for my wedding. And it's like, well, actually, I'm sorry, I can't do ranunculus in March, and I can't do peonies in February. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I actually think that social media presence has a lot to say for how that affects us trying to run a sustainable business, but also clients' approach to a business that is trying to run themselves in a sustainable fashion.
And it's hard to educate the general public that some of the things that you see there, just as you say, are not possible or not possible within your business ethos, which is sustainable floristry.
Yeah. And also within the realms of budgets that clients might have, because a lot of the things that are on Pinterest and Instagram and TikTok now, they're done by influencers. What people don't know is like that arch might actually be a $10,000 floral arch. And then you have people that come to you and they want this when the budgets are not aligned. Unfortunately, for a business person, it is so hard to give someone the same scale of what they want in this season with budget constraints and sustainable elements.
You must have been looking at my inbox. That's been a struggle this year with unrealistic expectations from brides, particularly if they're creating their own florals and they're expecting to get the absolute peak blooms and everything else. But then they also want an archway and they want table flowers and they want runners by the sides of the aisles and everything. You're thinking, and your budget's $500? Sorry. Here's some seeds. Yeah. We can't win that battle, I don't think. With your sustainability hat on, do you find it relatively simple to transfer all of your sustainability aims to event floristry? Because that's the floristry which I personally believe is the hardest to keep sustainable.
I think I do, because I haven't actually worked for another florist doing event floristry, so I don't really know any other way to do it. I'm sure it would be a lot harder if I'd come to it with an event floristry background in conventional floristry. I'm sure that would be a lot harder because it's easier to make habits than it is to break habits. And that's something that I learned a very long time ago. I've actually only ever done one wedding that I used flower foam for. That was my very first wedding that I did for myself as a business when I was actually still studying floristry and I was still learning. And I did that one wedding and I went, hell no, this is not for me. I can't do this. Flower foam and weddings don't mix. And so it's just been right from the beginning. I don't think I really know any other way to do it. So it doesn't feel hard to me because I'm not trying to break an old habit.
So how do you then educate your clients who may not understand and who in most cases do not prioritize sustainability?
I think for me, I've really kind of niched myself with my own social media presence and trying to make sure I'm educating my clients so that they all know. I'm very, very vocal about the fact that I am a sustainable florist and that I don't use flower foam and things like that. 90% of the clients that I get are booking me because they've already seen my work, so I don't find it's too hard on that side of it. I do get a few that will message me with things asking about flower foam, but usually most of my clients, they will just ask me like, how can we repurpose arch florals to inside tables? And I will usually say yes, as long as your arch is able to be moved, because of the sort of design that I do. But I'm finding the way styles have changed and evolved, which is just constantly the case. There's a lot less arch florals being used at the moment because a lot less arches are being used. There's so much more plinth florals, which are so much more easy to be repurposed. And that's something that I try to preach to my clients as well, is like, if you don't have massive budgets and you want to use me as your florist and you want to have flowers that really pack a punch, focusing on the key things that we can use and have them reusable and repurpose them to your reception flowers and things like that. So they're in water, so they are not going to wilt or anything like that. So I don't get too many problems, luckily, but I think that's down to the way I've sort of pushed myself online.
What advice would you give florists who are wanting to transition to more sustainable practices?
Start small. All of us are always learning. There's no such thing as like a one size fits all for any business in terms of floristry. And it's not like we get to a certain level and go, all right, that's good enough. It just start with one small habit that you know you can change to a better, more sustainable option, and see how you feel about that and see how it comes naturally to you and how it becomes just a habit, and work from there.
Is there a particular event that you're particularly proud of that reflects your sustainability values? What one did you come away at the end of the day and say, I loved doing that?
At one of my weddings this past season in March, I had a weekend of 3 weddings in 2 days, and one of them, the bride was also an avid gardener herself and an avid flower farmer. So it was sort of an amalgamation of me trying to work things sustainably and her also being completely on board with everywhere I wanted to go with those flowers. And I actually invited her when she came to pick up, because so I do a lot of providing like DIY buckets when clients want to do their own table flowers. So she ordered them and did that herself, and I did the arch flowers, I did the boutonnieres and all of the personal bouquets and things like that. I actually offered her, when she was going to come pick up the day before, I said, do you want to come a little bit earlier and make sure you've got enough time so you can have a look in the flower farm as well? She jumped on that and said, I'll be here half an hour earlier.
As any flower farmer would, yes.
Yeah. And it was really cool. She actually got to see it from the other side, so she could really appreciate everything that went into those flowers. But I was going to spend the rest of that day making her bouquets. So I actually got to sort of sit back while she was absorbing herself in the flower farm and take note of the flowers that she really, really liked. You know, kind of less wastage in a way, because I could really pinpoint things that I knew were really special to her. And there were a couple of my dahlias that I grow and that I only done for the first season, last season, ones that I don't even know varieties of, because I actually got through a friend that was found in like an old house that they'd moved into. She fell in love with these dahlias and she had sort of orange and pinks for her colours. And I actually, when I was picking for her bouquets just after she'd left, managed to find 2 heads that had spots in them. And so they had like just a couple of really cool pink flecks, and then I put them into her bouquet. And the next day when I'm delivering her bouquets before going to set up at the venue doing the arch flowers, and she nearly burst into tears. She was so stoked that I'd taken note of these little things and made sure that I had these perfect touches. But it also meant that there was way less waste, because I'm just not sort of amassing things for the sake of the vision. I'm really sort of fine-tuning what's in her bouquet and making sure it's exactly what she wanted.
Let's take a moment to hear from our sponsors. Season 2 of this podcast is proudly sponsored by UFG, New Zealand's largest flower wholesaler. UFG offers in-house auctions in Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch, as well as their new innovative remote online flower auctioning system. The remote online flower auctioning system enables growers and buyers to trade from anywhere in the country. UFG has also recently launched their virtual wholesale platform. The virtual wholesale platform makes it so easy to plan purchases ahead of time and has transparent pricing, logistics, and a platform you can rely on. UFG, connecting growers with the right buyers and buyers with the best flowers. Find out more about UFG using the link in the show notes. Hey, petals, and just like that, we're back into today's conversation. So I've got a question for you because I really struggle to get access to decent vessels to put on top of sort of wine barrels, just the size, the dimensions. Do you have a source for things like that that's easily accessible?
I like to use either Bunnings, Mitre 10 or the warehouse, and I just get like cover pots, plastic cover pots. Yeah, I find they're the best. So I've got a few white ones because I have some white acrylic plinths myself that I hire out. I just try to go with plastic plant cover pots because I find that they can take a beating. They're not going to break like glass. I've tried using lots of glass and ceramic, and they get damaged, they get cracked, they get chipped, they get broken. Unfortunately, I wish that there was a more sustainable option than using a plastic cover pot, but at least they are infinitely reusable.
You could grow only one flower. What would it be, and why would you grow that one?
Ooh, that's a very tough one.
It's like choosing your favourite child, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I don't know if I could pick. Probably either dahlias or cosmos. I love both of them. Or zinnias. That's how hard it is. All three. I do love them. But probably dahlias because the genetic variation is so extreme in them. I love breeding as well as growing them for cut flowers. And it's just so fun. I'm a bit nerdy, so I love putting my little nerdy cap on and having a play and seeing what different varieties I can come up with. I think that's amazing. And when you go down that rabbit hole of breeding and growing dahlias, it's so fun.
It's lovely to hear that. It's one of those things that can help you after a tough day when you go out to the flower field to unwind at the end of the day, and here you are, you're looking at something that only you grow and you absolutely love it. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
All right, well, here's the next mean question then. What's your favourite greenery to use in installations?
Smoke bush or hydrangea. I love smoke bush because I love how dramatic and dark the foliage is, and I love hydrangea for how multi-use it is. So I would say those two have got to be my top foliages.
Are you talking about the smoke bush when it's in flower or when it's finished flowering and you're just using the foliage?
When it's in foliage. I have used it in flower, and I think that's really amazing as well. I think that's kind of the cool part about smoke bush and hydrangea, actually both as well. They're both quite similar in that they have really dramatic flowers and really super useful foliage as well.
You love breeding your own dahlias and you enjoy tweaking the varieties that you're growing. Is that one of the things that keeps you going on those tough bridezilla, or for me, mumzilla days? Or do you have a process? You have a process that you go through. For someone who's listening, when I said mumzilla, Cassie gave me the sort of the thumbs up. We're talking the same language.
I've never had a bridezilla. I've had one bridezilla, but I've had quite a few mumzillas.
Yeah.
So I can completely understand that one. Most of the time, mumzillas are usually ones who are really into gardening as well, and they are trying to have as much input as possible. I usually find it's just trying to sort of really lightly guide them and gently reminding them that it's not actually their day. It doesn't happen too often, but I have had a couple of instances. It's usually the mother of the groom, not the mother of the bride, is what I've found.
It's very interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So then when you've had a day like that, or you've finished with an event like that, how do you recharge your batteries to feel the love for what you do again?
How do I recharge my batteries? I'm quite far out of town. I'm like 40 minutes from the Christchurch CBD. And so most of the time, within about an hour of most venues, drive home is usually enough. I have become very good friends with a lot of the venues in wedding vendors. And if we're actually at the venue setting up together, we kind of tend to hype up each other. And if we're all sort of leaving the same time, we'll try to have a little catch up and goss and, I don't know, hype each other up at the end of the day, which is usually always amazing. Yeah, I usually come home and we'll just talk my husband's ear off.
But that's quite cool. If you can vent some of that stress level or the fact that you're thrilled and you can talk about it with people who understand, then you've got all the way home in the car to think about what you'd have done differently. And then you can mouth off to poor hubby who has to listen at the end. But then it's gone. You've voiced it. You've either written it down or you've voiced it or you've dealt with it and your head is clear for the next time. You've enjoyed it or you haven't, doesn't matter. You've learnt something and you can move on to the next event.
I'm pretty lucky. I've fallen into a really good group of wedding vendors, and actually some of my best friends nowadays are also other wedding vendors in the area, and we just have constant group chats going on. So usually if I'll post something on my stories, one of them will message me and be like, "Oh my God," and then we'll just sort of go crazy from there, which is quite cool.
It is. It's finding the community that supports you and is there if you need them, and you're there if they need you. I think that's lovely, and that's what it really is about. It's what makes it sustainable from a psychological and a business point of view, not just a growing point of view.
Absolutely.
So looking ahead, any new varieties, ideas, or experiments that you're excited about? You don't have to tell us all your secrets, but give us a few.
Yes, absolutely. We've been working on the flower farm over winter. We've just put in 155 square metres more of bed space. We've also just installed our new walk-in chiller.
That will make so much difference to you. Yeah.
So much. I was using a little 2-door chiller for the last 2 seasons, and so I can't wait for that. And I've done that more sustainably and efficiently as well. So I'm really looking at seeing how that runs. So I've done a walk-in chiller that doesn't use condenser system. So I've done a Coolbot Pro system.
Us too. We're Coolbot. For me, the noise levels in the flower area have gone down hugely because we previously had a big old condenser that rattled along like a train and it was horrible. But the Coolbot, I love it. So how do you see your business evolving over the next couple of years?
I still have a few projects on the go that I would like to see out as much as it's financially able to be done. This business is 100% funded by us, so we do it in stages. I would like to get to the point where we have a large shade house area so I can grow more foliages right through and more native regeneration and like covered hydrangea rose. And I would like to put in a tunnel house so I can extend my season a bit more. And we want to do a covered workshop space so that I can actually hold larger workshops here. So I've done some, but we've had to do them like on our deck and under our small pergola. So to be able to have a covered workshop space would make things a lot easier because, I mean, as we know down here, when it's cold, but when it's hot, it's really hot. So to be able to give a decent enough space that's covered to provide people. We've also just released the flower farm to people to book in for wedding photos. So I think when I get to the point of having covered workshop space, then we can sort of play around more with the idea of doing some small weddings here. So I think that's sort of my vision of where I want to see the business go. I don't think I ever want to get to the point where I have like multiple other staff, maybe getting to the point where I can hire one other person, but I don't really want it to become too much bigger than us because that next step from, 1 to 2 is actually kind of like 7. So I don't want it to become too much where I end up run off my feet.
And I think you're exactly right. There's so much involved in employing staff, but I think you're very brave to think about actually having the farm available for anyone to use as a photo venue. Cassie, it's been an absolute joy talking to you. I love the way that you think and the way that you work. Your floristry is amazing. If anyone's looking for Cassie, her website is flourishevents.co.nz and her Instagram is Flourish Events Limited.
Thank you so much for having me. I always love the opportunity to sort of geek out over flowers with other people.
Until next time, petals, smile, be happy. Please follow along this season as with the support of UFG, we can bring you flower farming in New Zealand. UFG, New Zealand's largest flower broker. Talk to them today about buying and selling your flowers.